Hello everyone, so I also decided to remake the fourth video in this tutorial series with the lighting, building, and testing aspects of the tutorial, mostly because there were some things in it, again, that were a bit inaccurate and could have been explained better, and the video was a bit longer than I wanted it to be. Also, I got some tips from Waka. His channel is in the description down below. Big shout out to him. And yeah, so first we're going to start off with just doing some basic lighting. Now, we're not going to go too in depth. Lighting itself is quite an art. It is a huge part of map design, and it's not something that I'm great at, but we're going to add some basic lights to our map just so that it's, playable. And then perhaps later on in the series we can delve deeper into aspects of lighting to make your map look cool. But for now, we're just going to keep it fairly simple. So let's just go ahead and add a light. So the first thing we're going to do is go to the Entity browser, and we're going to type in light. And there's a few different ones here, build light and all these things. We're just going to want to use the unsorted light. Okay, so I'm going to put that in the middle of my room. Now, depending on your room size, you might want, and it really depends on how you want to do it, right? You could have 6 lights in this room that are smaller, or you could have one big light. It's really however you want to do it. I'm just going to go with one big light because it's simpler. So there's my light. So we can customize how our light works by going to the entity info by hitting N. And there's a few properties that are pretty interesting to us. One is we can change the color of the light. So if you wanted to, you could make it more of like a yellowish tint. If you wanted to go for that, kind of like an incandescent bulb. And you can also change the number of stops. So stops is basically another way of saying how intense the light is. It's the intensity. So if we go ahead and change this down to like 6, it's going to be far less intense. So I'm just going to move that up wait, hold on. Where's our let me just look for where our map is here, where our light is. Okay, I put our light way under the map. So if that happens for you too, you can just switch to the side view and drag it up. I don't know why I put it down that low, man. Wow. Okay. So now our light is in a more reasonable spot. Now we can actually see it. So yeah, so you can play with the stops to achieve the effect that you want. And the other thing you probably want to change is the radius. I'm going to make mine bigger because it needs to cover this larger room. So I'm going to make it like 300. So obviously we don't want to have to go in and build and test our map every time that we change the lighting. And luckily we don't have to do that with the Black Ops 3 Gradient. It's built right into the camera. But first we need to get the toolbar working. So if you're in Radiant and you haven't changed it yet, you probably don't have this toolbar on your camera. I set it on mine. So you can get this toolbar by going to View, View Toolbar, and changing it to exposure. I think by default it's set to render. You want to set it to exposure. And that gives you access to this really nice toolbar. And this is going to be extremely useful for doing lighting in your map. So we can actually change our mode by clicking on the camera, and we can change like the way that the camera is viewing. So we can change it to only view the wireframes, full bright, I don't really like that. Normal based fake lighting, which we were using before, view based fake lighting, which is okay, and real lighting. So this looks kind of messed up, right? That's because we haven't built the lighting yet, which we will do in a second. So in order to even build the lighting, you can see bounding sun volume does not support active lighting state. We can't even build the lighting yet. So we need to add a few things to our map to help with the lighting. So the first thing that we're going to add is a light grid sky. Okay, so we can go to the Entity browser and search for that. So we can just do sky, and here it is here in unsorted light grid sky. So we can just drop that in. So I like to place it pretty far out. In general, for your sun volume and stuff like that, you're going to want to put it further out so that it doesn't whitewash your map. But not only that, it also just helps in case you want to expand your map. You don't have to move everything then, only if you expand it a lot. So I like to put my light grid volume to these gray lines when I zoom out a lot, these thicker gray lines. So there is our light grid sky, and we just have to go to the other view to change it in the XZ space as well. Okay, so now we have our light grid sky. So if we zoom out a lot, we will be able to see it. Let me just see where my camera is. Yeah. So there is our light grid sky. The next thing we're going to want to add is called an umbra volume. So this is for, this is actually very important. If you don't add this to your map, you're going to have really stupid glitches, like models that are like glitching in and out of the game. It's really annoying. So just add it. Trust me, it's gonna save you a lot of hassle. So I like to put that just about like two units when you're zoomed out this far. 2 units from the light grid sky. And then the next thing we're gonna add is we're actually just gonna draw a regular brush. So that's going to be right here. And what this is going to be is it's going to be a skybox. So this is going to be incredibly important because since we've added an umbra volume, it won't actually let us build the map without a skybox as well. So this one's going to be a bit different because we're going to have to hollow it, similar to what we did with the room. So we can just go to Selection, CSG, CSG Hollow, and now we have our skybox in place. The last thing we need to add is a volume sun. This can't be a brush. We're going to have to add it through the Entity Browser. So we'll just go sun, and here it is, volume sun. So this is what's needed to actually build the lighting. So again, I'll do about 2 units from the skybox. Okay, here we go. So you can see like our sun volume is pretty far from our map, like super far. And this is a good thing because the closer it is, it'll kind of whitewash it. And your sun volume is incredibly important. Even if your map is an indoor map, this sun volume is going to really affect your lighting. And I'm actually going to do a bit of a trick here. So if you're making an outdoor map, you're going to want to play with this quite a bit. You're going to go into the entity info and you're going to want to change, maybe play with some things. I'm not going to though, because I'm just making an indoor map, but we might come back to this later on in the series for more advanced stuff. By default, the light state is set to default day, and this is going to make it pretty bright even inside your map. So I'm going to change this. This is basically your skybox. So I'm just going to set it to ZM Factory, and what this basically is it's like the giant skybox. So you can see it's pretty dark out. It's like midnight, and it's really nice for achieving like a darker light setting inside your map, which is exactly what I'm going for. So yeah, so now that we have the sun volume set up, we have everything good to go. We should be able to build the lighting. So we can build the lighting by hitting this little arrow to the left of the 3D camera, and we click the lightning bolt. So there we go. So now we have some lighting. So there are a few problems. As you can see, we have bleeding light. There's like light bleeding into the room from outside, which is really annoying. And the lighting doesn't really match up, right? Like this wall's a bit lighter than this wall and stuff. So we're going to fix those issues now. So the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to add a reflection probe. So we can go to the top down view here. So go to the Entity Browser again, and we're just going to type in reflect. And that's going to give you this reflection probe in unsorted. Okay, so this is going to help you fix a lot of the like little, glitches with the colors and stuff like that of the lights. So I'm just going to expand it to cover the entire room. Now here's a common mistake that people do that doesn't really work out too well in the end, is they like to make the reflection probe cover the entire map. You want more than one reflection probe for your map. A general rule of thumb is 1 per room is usually pretty good. And again, it put my reflection probe down in the middle of nowhere, so I'm just going to have to move that up. Okay, perfect. So yeah, generally you want 1 per room. Okay. So yeah, so now we have a reflection probe. So we can go back and rebuild the lighting, and we should be able to see some changes with the colors. They shouldn't, yeah, you can see like that bluish color is gone. But there's still a few issues with the shadows, right? We still have some bleeding light here. So our fix for that was actually also found by Waka, and what we're going to do is we're going to create another brush around our map. So I'm going to go out a little bit, maybe make it here or so. Yeah, that's about good. And then when you expand your map, you can expand this after. So let me just make this a bit bigger here. Okay, that goes a bit higher than I need it to go. There we go. That's good enough. Okay, so now that we have that set up, we're just going to go ahead and go to the textures. And we're going to search for shadow chalk. So this is basically going to make it so that the shadows don't go completely, completely messed up in our room. So I'm just going to zoom out. So here is our shadow chalk. You know what? I can actually make that a bit smaller. We don't need it that far out. Just trying to make it a bit symmetric. There we go. That's good enough. So there is our shadow chalk. I'm just going to bring it down a bit. Awesome. Okay. So now we want to also hollow this out. So we're going to go to Selection, CSG, CSG Hollow. And now we have a shadow chalk encompassing our map. And we won't have this weird bleeding light issue anymore when we rebuild the lighting. Perfect. So no more bleeding light into the room. This is really nice. Now, you're going to want to play with the lighting in your map to reflect the effect that you want. So in my case, I'm just going to kind of leave it because it's not incredibly important to me. I might actually just turn the stops down a little bit, maybe to like 4 because it is a bit bright. And so I'm not going to cover lighting too in depth, but I will say that generally you don't want light coming from nowhere. So you can change that by going to the model browser and just going to all, and you can just search for light, and these will have models that, you know, have lights that where light would typically come out of, right? So I'm just gonna pick this thing and put it up there, and I'm just gonna align my light so that it kind of is inside of it like that, right? So now it looks a lot more natural. It doesn't look like our light is coming from nowhere. So that's about as far as I'm going to go with lighting in this tutorial. And your map, you're going to want to, you know, experiment a bit, play a bit. I'm happy to say that this real lighting mode in the camera is pretty accurate. So what you see in this is pretty close to what you see in game. So you don't need to rebuild and test your map every time you want to make a small lighting change or anything like that. Okay, so yeah, we're done with lighting now, so now we want to get to the building aspect. So we're going to want to go to the launcher, and you're going to check your map off here, and you're going to select Compile, Full, Light, Medium, Link, and you can select Run as well. So basically Run just makes it so that when the compile is finished, it will automatically open the game for you and launch right into the map. You don't have to check this though. So yeah, we can just hit the build button. So building will spit some info out into this log, and on your first build it can take a while, so just give it a little bit of time. Radiant will open up, and it also gives you this nice little dev console and a progress bar as well as a timestamp, which is really nice. In World at War it only like flashed you a bunch of textures, which was really annoying, but this is actually pretty interesting, and it gives you some sort of idea of where it is along in compiling the map. So I'm just going to let that build, and I'll see you in game. Okay, and as you can see, we are now in our map. And you can see I tweaked the lighting a little bit since the first part of this tutorial. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. There's no light bleed or anything stupid in regards to the lighting, like there was in the first version of this tutorial. The only thing that is a bit of a problem is you can see I have some various models placed around the map here to give it a bit more flavor, but we can just kind of walk right inside them. This bar table over here we can just jump right on top of, and players could probably exploit this to get like an invincibility spot. And it takes away from the realism of the map, right? If people can just like walk right into the couch, right into the, you know, fridge and stuff like that. So that's something we're going to need to fix, and later on in the series we're going to set up clips for these models, that way we can't just walk right inside them. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, please leave a like below, comment any questions or comments you guys may have on the video, and subscribe, and have fun testing your maps.